Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Ranandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Srila Prabhu Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe Jaya, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe. This should be like, it'll be broken in a few days. Pull it out by still you can. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There was some instruction when this mantra was suggested as a daily japa. Came from, yeah. To whom? Drummer, that's right. So you can chant this mantra all day long. And it's quite a bit of meditation. It's very peaceful. Oh, and very loud. Since absorption in transcendental consciousness is the goal of every human being. And this mantra is actually introducing us, first of all, to Srimad Bhagavatam, which is description of mostly Lord Krishna and devotees who are absorbed in this pure consciousness, fully dedicated and focused on the Supreme Person. So we'll try to do the same today by reading one of the verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, which we are entering the lamentations part. It is mentioned that Kalau Shudra Sambhavam. Have you heard that thing? That in Kali Yuga, in this age of quarrel, we are all born well, that part of Germany which Govindadev lives, that just Brahman is born in. And Shudras are, one of the main qualities is lamentation. So therefore for us, at least in the life before ISKCON, this kind of state of mind is supposed to be quite of a familiar thing. Lamenting about everything, complaining about everything around us is just nonsense and demoniac, Not supposed to be like this. This life has to be nice and beautiful, but somehow it doesn't happen. So this is a Shudra mentality, and also, unfortunately, it is a criticism. And not just criticism, but criticism without constructive suggestions. So, Srimad Bhagavatam gives two things. One is proper context of lamentation, not the lamentation which Shudra is supposed to do. Another thing is positive, constructive engagement in some activity. So today we will delve into the Mataji's first of three parts. So these are three parts of this chapter. First, when it is described how nicely Devahati Mataji, she was performing the service, and was very much absorbed in that service. A second part is as a result and appreciation by her husband, she got a pretty unusual situation in a flying palace. And the third part, when the whole culmination of that flying palace engagement in the children was completed, then the husband went to the forest, as he was saying in the very beginning, and that lamentation was started. But that's coming up. We're just giving overview of the chapter. So today we are reading of the verse said by the husband, Kardama Muni, and he's appreciating the service her wife was doing. In such a way, the Sanskrit sounds like this. Kardama vacha tushtoham adya tavamana vimana daya tushtoham adya tavamana daya tushtoham adya tavamana vimana daya Shushrusaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya Shushrusaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya Yodehinam ayam ativa suhrit sadeho Yodehinam ayam ativa suhrit sadeho Navekshita sumuchita kshipatum mad arthe Navekshita samuchita kshapitum madarthe Kardama vacha Tushto hamadya tavamana vimana daya Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya Yadehinam ayam ativa suhrit sadeho Navekshitāk sumuchitāk shapitum madarthe Sanskrit scholars, please. Kardama vacha Tushtoham adya tadamana vimana daya Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya Yodehinam ayamativa suhrit sadeho Shushaya paraya paraya bhakta Yehinam aramrachita radaksa deho Yaveshita rasapachita Dharate Kardama vacha Susto hamadya tavamana vimanadaya. Bhaktya Yodehinam Adhanachari Etsadeho Ramachitam Ravatam Adarte. Mataji's Kardama Vacha Rusto Ramada Virana Virana Maya Sushushaya Radaraha Hare Virana Hare 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 Avekshita Tradodatam Chapitu Madarte Kardama Vacha Yusto Mamadyam Haravana Vyayadaya Shushushaya Paramaya Paraya Cha Bhaktya Yodehinam Ahamativa Suhritsa Deho Navekshita Samachitam Samadeo Tahardi. Kardama Vacha. The great sage Kardama said, Tushta, pleased. Aham, I am. Adya, today. Tava, with you. Manavi, O daughter of Manu. Manadaya, who are respectful. Shushushaya, by the service. Paramaya, most excellent. Paraya, highest. Cha, and Bhaktya, by the devotion. Ya, that which. Dehinam, to the embodied. Ayam, this. Ativa, extremely. Suhrit, dear. Saha, that. Deha, body. Na, not. Avekshita, taken care of. Samuchita, properly. Kshapitum, to expand. Mat arthe, on my account. Purport and translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Kardama Muni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhu Manu, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. Purport. Is it indicated here that one's body is very dear? Yet Devahuti was so faithful to her husband that not only she serve him with great devotion, serve him with a great devotion, service and respect, but she did not even care for her own health. That is called selfless service. It appeared that Devahuti had no sense pleasure, even with her husband. Otherwise, she would not have deteriorated in health. Acting to facilitate Kardamuni's engagement in spiritual elevation, she continuously assisted him, not caring for the bodily comfort. It is a duty of faithful and chaste wife to help her husband in every respect, especially when the husband is engaged in Krishna consciousness. In this case, the husband also amply rewards wife. This is not expected by the woman who is not wife, who is a wife of an ordinary person. Amagyantimirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshuranmiltam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadigora Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Some few days ago, probably a week ago, we had this little bit of a discussion of the quote which is in the kitchen entrance. You know that. Param Tattva definitely knows that. Who haven't paid attention to the entrance to the kitchen, what is said there? No, not much, right? You just go to the kitchen. Why to read scriptures, you know? There should be some warning, you know. Or, you know, some blessings. Anyways, there's a saying which goes around in ISKCON that the most important is health. Are you subscribed to that? Do you agree or not? By my research, I was trying to follow the idea and didn't find in any book of Prabhupada, neither in a class of Prabhupada, neither in a conversation of Prabhupada. None of those three main things which we follow subscribe much or maintain or emphasize. If that statement would be so important, that would be repeated many times by Prabhupada. In opposite, it is mentioned so important, the most important thing is to finish your rounds. That is said many times. But health is more important than the reading and chanting and service. This is only thing which is written in one of the memories of Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhu, one of his disciples, Prabhupada. So, according to the system or the approach which was introduced by Shivaram Swami in a discussion of the Mataji Guru subject, he explained quite nicely that there is a different things which we should consider to see the importance of the statement or context of the statement. So here we see the Srimad Bhagavatam, what to say of Srila Prabhupada's commentary. Srila Vyasadeva himself, he chose the whole story of Devahuti's and Kardamuni's interaction. Of course, there was a quite important part of it, appearance of Kapila Maharaj or Bhagavan Kapila, which comes later chapters. But still, the service as such, which led, first of all, to the enormous rewards which are given to the lady, to the Mataji, to the wife, was this service. and it is emphasized in a Srimad Bhagavatam verse itself, that you were so much absorbed in the thing of serving that you were neglecting the health. And that was very much welcomed by the Kardama Muni. And he was not a simple person, he was the son of Brahma, one of the most pious living beings in the universe. So, therefore, his story is included in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is most pure, most exalted description of those devotees who are given as examples. So therefore we follow this storyline and also find other examples in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a quite lengthy description, I'll see how much we read. A few more examples given by Srimad Bhagavatam, how other ladies were doing very, very menial and service which implied that looking after body is not as important as a service. I remember somehow the story just popped into my mind, and Yamuna Mataji, the famous cook, she wrote a book, Srimad Bhagavatam of cooking, and she was serving Srila Prabhupada. And she remembered the service was so not easy. It's just easy to say, but actually it was very hard. First of all, to squeeze money out of the temple president, who had a scarcity of funds, to provide the money for Prabhupada's food, even Prabhupada's food. That time the money was so scarce that they were trying to put the important projects, because the project, one thing is, you put in your mouth and you eat it, and that's it. It's gone, you know. All the money which you eat, it disappears, you know. But if you put in some project which develops, you know, like a business mentality, okay, you have to be reasonable. You have to put a little bit of money for eating, but also some money so it brings next money. There was an unfortunate situation in Russia, particularly Ukraine. In Stalin's time, there were such a, I don't know, some torture idea, you know. Hitler at least killed the people, and they were tortured alive, you know. The whole thing was, I stayed in Ukraine, and some devotees told the whole thing, that they took all the food away, so people practically not only could not eat, but also there was nothing to plant for next year. So if you have some potatoes or some vegetables, you know, you keep some seeds for next year. You know, you eat something, but you know, if you eat everything, then nothing's left. So they took it away, both the thing which you daily use and things which are supposed to be put in the ground for next year. So this is most unintelligent. At the same time, we can say a similar stuff. I remember there was this Christian business philosophy man called Stephen Covey. You know that name, Stephen Covey? 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. You heard of that? Someone? So his idea, one of the first habits was to sharpen a saw. What does it mean? That means you have to keep the tools which produce the results ready and nicely kept. Like if you want to cook properly, one of the main services besides cooking is what? Cleaning and washing pots, right? So if you want to have cooking properly, you have to keep your pots clean and your knives sharp. So you cannot cut the tree and say, I have to cut the tree and I have no time to sharpen my saw, which I use for cutting tree. So therefore, the successful people are always putting aside time, either energy or time or as the agricultural people thinking they put aside some potatoes for next year to put in the ground. They don't eat it all. Even if you are kind of a little bit of a starving, maybe even, but you are intelligent. So same thing, the things which we use for getting benefit, getting profit, has to be kept in order. So therefore the question is, that balance. And from this verse understand, she was doing service, menial service with the body. At the same time, she was not maintaining the body. It's kind of contradiction, right? Any ideas how this contradiction can be solved? She was serving, menially serving Kardamuni with the body, right? At the same time, she was not looking after her body. So that means, at the same time, the body is going to be weaker and weaker, and you can do less and less service. Right? So, how these contradictions can be solved?
Maybe absorption.
Absorption.
When you're absorbed, you forget your body. Sometimes when you're so absorbed into something, you forget about your body.
It is true. Absorbed in something which is not Krishna. That's the biggest problem of material world, being absorbed in something which is not essential. So the essence here, it is definitely mentioned, her service to husband. But Prabhupada mentions in the last two sentences, that husband also amply rewarded wife. At the same time, he says, this is not to be expected by the woman who is a wife of ordinary person. So if you are completely absorbed in serving a husband, which is not following the essence of the deepest meaning, the deepest benefit of the living being, which is soul, then first of all, you can spend your time and your body will be deteriorated, you know. You become skinny, and at the end maybe you're not even able to do proper service, but reward doesn't exist. Because you were absorbed in the serving of the ordinary person. Only the person who he's, first of all, connecting himself to the ultimate source of all benefits can be, say, properly situated. And all the necessities of the life, including the bodily needs and bodily maintenance, but besides that, there's the higher needs also. What's the higher needs? Above the bodily things. Other examples. Especially ladies know that. Emotional needs, no? Maharaj yesterday was speaking about emotional needs also. What would be emotional need? Example. Attention. Affection. Compassion. Being compassionate. Yeah. Being able to adjust to the feelings and situations of the person. Yeah. So those things have to be there. Otherwise, the whole Vedic society doesn't work. These are the few qualities which husband and wife should follow. And I cannot say, I haven't actually researched, should be mentioned in Prabhupada's books, otherwise the Maharaj just doesn't mention, because I heard from 3 different sources. One is from Bhaktivedanta Swami, then from Atmarama Prabhu in Russia. He gives this whole family seminars very much. And he says there's 2 qualities for each, for husband and wife. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not. So for the husband, there's 2 things. Sense control and being sensitive to the needs of the wife. For the wife, you know, is chastity. In other words, say loyalty to the husband. Another thing is being satisfied what is provided. So in this particular situation, we see that Devahuti, she was satisfied with things in that situation while she was serving how much was provided. And she was also loyal to husband, and she put the needs of the husband more important first to her own needs. So therefore Prabhupada says, this is called selfless service. Selfless means you put your things which is not your less, not you, put something else. And that is the basics of all Vedic culture and spiritual advancement. When you start putting someone else more important than you, that comes as a basic principle, first of all, interaction, good interaction, and second of all, the possibility to develop. As Maharaj yesterday mentioned, there is some important thing of the learning. Right? He repeated the whole learning thing so long, but from one of the seminars of Devaki Mataji, when she starts a seminar, he says, what's the biggest impediment on development? The claim, I know already. I know. Maharaj did yesterday. I know 3 beats of Mridanga already. Why? I know. Yeah. So this is a pinch of sattva guna, which is still material guna, which is nice. At the same time, it is stopping of the further advancement towards spirituality and towards devotion. So we can be caught up in a serving, in a selfless serving, but if that activity is not maintained and inspired by intelligence, which is coming from scriptures, from saints and so on, it is all waste of time. Right? So, other few examples here, which I could read for a long time. This is a wife of Prithu Maharaj, Archie. Purports are quite long, or at least the verses we read. The queen, the wife of Prithu Maharaj, whose name was Archie, followed her husband into the forest. Another example of queen going to the forest. Since she was queen, her body was very delicate. Yeah. Yesterday Maharaj told. The king is well known that he doesn't have a hair on his body. Very delicate, very nice, very smooth, The hairy bodies, they are not very conducive. Somebody says the more hair you have, more tamaguna. It's like you look like an animal. So as far as I know, from descriptions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body, he didn't have any hair on the body. He's very, very smooth, very, very delicate. So woman's body is also delicate, and also she did not deserve to live in the forest. She voluntarily touched her lotus feet to the ground. So for the queens, that was amazingly enough. They didn't touch even sometimes the streets of the cities, which are or palace. They were carried around from the room, from the palace to the other places in palanquin. So they didn't touch the ground. So obviously, she touching ground means maybe even not wearing shoes properly. So that had happened as a queen. Although she was not accustomed to such difficulties, Queen Archie followed her husband in regulative principles of living in the forest like great sages. She lay down on the ground. Isn't that kind of austerity? Even for man, I think lying on the ground or on the floor without mattress is quite austere. So what to say lying on the ground, it's quite cold. Anybody try to stay like sleep on the ground, except it's a sunny Sunday afternoon in the grass. You go out now without any mattress or something, like just half an hour on the ground, and you'll be sick for months. Your kidneys will be infected or something like this. Our body is not accustomed to that. Still, the queen, she was lying on the ground, eating only fruits, flowers, and leaves. And because she was not fit for those activities, she became frail and thin. Yet because of the pleasure she derived in serving a husband, she did not feel any difficulties. So that's an interesting thing which we have to understand, that if the wealth of the queen is a kind of normal thing, and all these facilities and luxuries are normal, if we would achieve that position, having that kind of level of opulence, that you can have 12 mattresses on top of each other, like a proper queen. There was a story about the queen which had a small pea underneath, It's a children's story. You still could feel, Just imagine that queen lying in the ground in the forest. It was really difficult. Still, when you reach that kind of opulence, and especially not just by cheating, but by actually following scriptures, you come to the understanding that this is not all in all. There should be something more, because that thing doesn't bring enough satisfaction, pleasure. As we know, the most important part of the soul is interaction. So how much you can interact with your mattress, How much you can interact with your sleeping bag? Not much, How much pleasure you can get. You can sleep. But then when you wake up, you lament, I slept too long, I missed the Mangalarti, or I missed the class, I missed the greeting of deities. So that brings lamentation. And as we see, the difficulties which could come from such a interaction with a husband, and especially when a husband is absorbed in a higher spiritual activities, that brings pleasure which is not comparable to any of those luxuries provided by even the, not just kings, the emperors of the world. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, his wife, Vishnupriya, although only 16 years old, also took the austerity due to her husband leaving home. She chanted on the beads, and after finishing one round, she collected 1 grain of rice. In this way, as many rounds she chanted, she would receive the same number of rice grains and then cook them and took as prasadam. This is called austerity. We have to understand that the proper husband and wife relationship should be based on compatibility. You know the word compatible. Who can say nice example of compatibility in any direction? Well, if you are good enough, you can say in a family life. But any word itself, compatibility. What does that mean? 2 vegetarians and compatible. Yeah, sure. Anything else? Khichdi and yogurt. Yes, they're compatible. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Socket and the plum. Yeah. I don't know, tell you a story or not, from my childhood. When I was getting 13, 14 years old, I started to understand the male-female principle somehow, and I started to see it everywhere. The plug, and the socket, Sometimes we, in a computer science, when we say there's a mother and father, connection. What do you need? I need a wire for the computer. Which plug you need, mother or father? It's there. When you have even the buttons on your shirt, there's a father and mother. There's a button, there's a hole. Everything is principles of male and female. So there's some active principle and there's a passive principle, and I was amazed. It's like I could see it everywhere. So when we say of compatibility, everybody is accustomed to know the situation in the kitchen. Is the spoon and the pot look similar? Not much, but they are very much compatible. They so complete each other. So if you have a pot like this, size like half liter, and you have a spoon which is used for the milk, milk spoon, is it compatible? Not really. So it has to be size also, not to the shape. So in a family situation, compatibility doesn't mean it is a similarity. In order to be attractive to each other and interesting, has to be some difference, like in a magnet. Two similar things, they push away from each other. Opposite, like north and south, they attract each other. So some attraction in a family life has to be there. And if you understand the queen situations, I can give one example. The Diti and Kashyapa also. She also did the thing. Okay, Diti thought, Indra considers his body eternal, and thus he has become unrestrained. I therefore wish to have a son who can remove Indra's madness, and let me adopt some means for this. So this is introduction for the whole thing. When she started austerity, she saw that somebody else, not me, somebody else is too much attracted to the body. Indra is attracted. And Indra is well known as a good family man. And he's attracted to his own body as a king. He's false ego. I'm a king of the heavens, And she saw, because she was, of course, also the wife of saint. There was some kind of compatibility of mentality and spiritual knowledge she could see. So therefore, to lower the false ego of Indra, she started to have austerities, but austerity is coming up also. It was pretty easy. It had to give up and eat only certain things and do this and then do service to Vaishnava. She had to do, and you cannot break. Even you break a little bit, that's it. Your austerity finished. You have to start it from the beginning. So you have to be really attentive. So many examples of this. When you are getting into the more subtle, important spiritual subjects, you start to pay less attention to your bodily needs and even health. It's true. Because you can spend so much time in health. There's a whole shops full of health stuff. Ramananda is away, I can tell you. When I went to his apartment, which he changed now to the second floor, the first floor there was still some things left over. And I went to the bathroom. I thought, well, I'm going to help to carry something up or something. In the bathroom there was few shelves full of small bottles. And what do you mean they are meant for? For health. I would say there was like 75 or up to 100 small bottles, different size, big buns, big ball, and all meant for health. This health, that health, And every health shops have this is drop for enlarging your eyelids, something like this. This is good for that, and this particular oil from African plant is very good for removing pimples. This is good for digestion, and this is good for digestion morning, and this is good for digestion evening. If you go to every doctor, they have like hundreds of different pills. I went to Mayapur, and he had a whole shelf like this, and there was just pills. And then there's one pill exactly doing the same thing, but for a different person. That's different in Ayurveda. If you go to normal pharmacy, there'll be some pill which is used for everyone. Aspirin is everyone. But no, this is aspirin for Kapha dosha, and this is aspirin for Pitta dosha, and that is for what? And there's the mixtures, So you can actually, a whole science and how many books and how many medicine, there's 100 different companies producing the same thing. So you can be completely absorbed in maintaining a body. But after all, what happens to it? It's in the best case scenario, it is get burned, In the worst case scenario, it's get been eaten by worms. Have you? Some of you have told me a story of my childhood when I was probably, first year, second year in the school. I asked my parents, "What happens after death?" And you know what they answered? The worms eat you. He answered to the 7-year-old child, such an answer. That's a good answer. And that day I was going to school probably like 3 hours. It was not far. It was like 1 kilometer to walk but I was going 3 hours to the school. I couldn't understand how it's happening. Me eaten by worms. And I was really absorbed, meditating how it will be happening. Yeah. And you already, you've been digging in the ground, You're buried in the ground and okay. And then you lie on the ground and then worms start coming and then start eating. That's meditation, right? So, but after like a couple hours of walking very slowly towards the school, which I definitely missed a few first lessons, I realized the biggest anxiety is not eaten by worms. The biggest anxiety was that the many, many years which I spent underneath there eaten by worms, I'll miss what's happening on top of earth. What's happening with my parents, my friends, my whatever. I don't know what's going on because I'm there underneath and I cannot see anything. That was my realization. I didn't care about worms somehow. So, therefore, being completely absorbed into your bodily things, the cycle is quite limited, You eat, you maintain it very nicely, and then after that, you spend so much time and energy putting into it, and after that, that's completely, you have to leave it. You have to leave it to the worms or to the fire or something like this. When you sit there in a yagya in evenings and Saturdays, I also meditate in fire. Like one day is going to come. One day is going to come. You'll be burned in the fire. Yes. We saw in the video the Pankajangri Prabhu when one of the two brothers who left Pankajangri Prabhu left the body. So he had a very, very nice fire ceremony in a bank of Ganges, and thinking, one day it's going to be. So therefore, the service itself, which comes from following someone, hopefully good for the lady's husband, or in the best scenario, maybe a spiritual master, or some person who is absorbed in more subtle and deeper things, will bring you to such a attention, such a absorption that those things which are temporarily are not put so much attention. We can say there was no comfort, and Prabhupada says, since they didn't have even any sense pleasure, even the husband, if that would happen, her health would not be deteriorated. And Bhaktivedanta Swami says, if there is no interaction of the senses with the objects, especially for Maharajis or for any in particular, straight away there's emancipation, there's straight away deterioration of the body. There's even some kind of torture, as far as I know. You put someone in a room and there's no light. Okay, no food you can tolerate for some while, but there's no light and there's no sound. It's called sense deprivation, something like this. It's a complete torture. If you don't have any interaction with the world, you're practically dead. So therefore, if you are getting absorbed in more subtle things, as we said, emotional things, which are not really connected to the body, you can interact with people very nicely and not be so absorbed in the bodily things, how you feel, right? Of course, you have some senses or body to feel with, but still you feel inside. You can be feeling so differently with the same body. So this variety is much bigger and more absorbing and more pleasant, by the way, if the feelings are nice. And even more, if those feelings are maintained by intelligence, even more. But our whole philosophy is not to be absorbed those things, but to get the benefit of this devotion, which is hopefully we can interact with our beloved husband or wife, which are devotional, or in a better even spiritual master. So if you are getting absorbed and you find yourself in the service, in some stage you'll understand. You are completely kind of oblivious. You forget about your bodily needs, which so far you've been so careful to maintain all the time. So therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is introducing us the priorities, the needs, and benefits of the different levels of interaction. You can interact in the bodily, you can do service, menial service, but you can do also some emotional support. And therefore, especially Madhajis, they are very much expert on emotional support for the children and even for a husband. Which husband is not so expert? But, as we remember, the duty of the husband is to be sensitive. There is no duty of Maharaji being sensitive or to the... It is natural. So therefore we understand compatibility means we understand the nature of each of the male, female, and each of them has a strong suit, and each of them has to be a little bit of a way of development. So, as remember, Maharaj also yesterday said the mother who divorces the husband in a presence of the children, she is enemy, right? So, therefore, the positive, there's always the carrot and the stick. You know? The positive thing is being loyal, or particularly the name which applies to ladies, chaste. Chaste means you have concentrate on one person. Yeah, don't think, okay, this person, I you know how you call the ladies who are not chaste? Prostitutes. You know? Why? Because every next day there's a different person she concentrated on. Actually, she's not concentrating on the person at all. She's concentrating on money. Or, in some case, in a personal sense pleasure. So there is no person interaction. So therefore, it is not very pleasant, you know, not very actually advanced. So this is basically animal life. Unless you becoming trained up and living in a standard of varnashrama, before that we can say it is animal life. It's based on sense, pleasures, not caring about others. If you see other lion eating some prey, some antelope, whatever, and you are hungry, you don't care about that lion. Even more, you're ready to bite that lion just to get the food. Yeah, and the great artists, they also maintain the whole thing. I remember this Avatar movie. You have seen this? Must be seen by someone at least. Avatar movie, right? No? Avatar? You've seen? Of course, Avatar movie. It is a devotional movie. It's called Avatar. So there is some kind of metal, very metal, which called unobtainium, which is somewhere in the planet which has no gravity. It just floats in the air, you know, and it costs like millions of dollars for 1 kilo. So the whole campaign of that movie was some karmis, they just went to that planet and they collected that unobtainium. And because those indigenous blue people bluish people. You know, this is description of the Vaikuntha. There's all inhabitants. They actually have the same features of the Krishna. They have bluish color even. So if you go to that planet and you think, okay, there is some wealth which I need, and if that blue person sits on top of it, he becomes your enemy straight away. So you become more absorbed into the material things and use people to get it. It has to be opposite. You use things to interact with people, you know, but you interact with matter and use the people. That's usually our fault. So round up the class, leave a few minutes for the questions. We, inspire everyone to study the hierarchy of spirituality compared to material needs of our bodies and health, compared to ability and absorption and benefits you get from the service to the holy people, holy persons like Kardamani or our spiritual masters, and understand, if you're really getting absorbed, you understand the proportions and the values of material things being much, much less important and less pleasure giving. How much matter can give actually a pleasure? No, not much. It's matter. It is matter. Yes, Maj.
I'm curious, what did she do finally after she realized that she was physically weak?
She didn't do nothing. That's the thing. She didn't do anything. She was doing the service. She was doing the service to the husband, and because here in the last 6 words, actually it's going, I think, till verse 11 or 12, this whole conversation and appreciation of her service, and then comes the next stage. Because the husband was happy and satisfied, although he was poor, outwardly, he was mystical. He was mystical yogi, and he could create that kind of, just a palace, flying palace around. He could create, but he didn't do for himself. He didn't care. But because wife was coming from the kingly background, she could appreciate that thing. So she could appreciate that palace, and therefore he said, well, if you are queen, princess, then if I create, then you will understand my value. At the same time, when the whole thing was created, and she appreciated that, at the moment when still the husband said, I'm leaving now. And that point you become like amazed. You have so much things which I value as a princess, and my husband, he doesn't care about much. You know, he just goes in the forest and he performs the duties. Like, what I'm missing? Your story about Rupa Goswami and the touchstone. You know, some guy said, well, I had a story, you have a touchstone. He said, yeah, sure, it's in the garbage there. Look. Very cool, you know. Finally, I got my fingers on the touchstone, and then when he goes away, and then he's like, why are you putting him in garbage? Why are you putting in garbage? So if the person who is able to create such a palace for just easily for the wife, and then he doesn't value it, and he goes for the forest to observe himself, even more. They had a child who was God himself, and still he goes to the forest. So there's something more. So she, first of all, she did nothing. When you get absorbed in the service of the person, it's like brahmachari example. If the guru doesn't invite you, you don't eat. And if he says, okay, if you say, all the brahmacharis come in, you can mention name, or you can say, invite everyone, please come eat. Then everybody comes. If it doesn't come, I don't eat. That was not my service. My service was something else. So for a wife, the main service is serve. So providing benefits and providing things, it is the duty of the husband. But it doesn't come, oh, that's your duty. You didn't do your duty. The Vedic system is do your own duty, and providing for yourself is duty of someone else. In the Western society, we are so fired up about rights. This is my right of freedom, right of freedom of speech, just rights. So, but whose duty is to fulfill those rights? Because other person also, he thinks about his rights, I'm a king. My rights is to receive the taxes, just pay taxes, If you pay taxes, then maybe I'll give some of those money back as a charity and maintain yourself. Vedic system opposite. You think about your duties. And maintain you is a duty of someone else. So therefore, one of the duties or the prescribed quality of the woman is to be satisfied with things which are provided by husband. And if you think, okay, this husband doesn't provide me enough, then what's the thing? If you don't follow culture, you look for another husband and you become enemy of your children. If you're not having children, then it's more or less Vedic system says, okay, you can remarry. But if you have children, there's no point of remarrying because the children, or especially son, is representative husband. So you have a husband in shape of a child, Why you need one more? So that means you need two husbands at the same time. It's not fair. Except your Draupadi, doesn't work. But it's a very unusual case. So therefore, if you are chaste, then the husband, he'll be sensitive. At the same time, if he's sensitive to you, to your needs, then there's no need to look for other husbands. So therefore, automatically, you become chaste. If he's sensitive, And if he's self-controlled, if you are self-controlled, then it's sensitive. Yeah, there's two things, sense control and sensitivity. And the husband, wife was being chaste and happy with what's provided. So if he is sense controlled, you become chaste. And if he's sensitive to your needs, wife becomes thing. But the main point is this part. Although we talk currently about devotee, this is most important point. The wife follows the husband. She cannot do anything unless it is first showed by husband. So, unless he gives example, it's impossible to follow. If the husband cannot cook at all, it's nonsense, Could happen. Wife likes to cook, but because she likes to cook. If the husband can cook and is perfect cook, she's happy to do that because meanwhile, husband does something more important, right? But if instead of doing more important, he just sits on the couch and watches TV, what kind of food he will get, Maybe just unfrozen fries, something like that. Or pizza ordered, Okay? You do nothing, you don't interact, so I don't interact either. So why spending hours and hours interacting if first of all he doesn't cook and second of all he doesn't appreciate food, So just order pizza, Chinese food, That's it. Why spend so much time? So if the husband is doing something more, wife is ready to do menial service for that. If not, then there's no interest. There's no attraction also. Because wife's main thing is attraction is interaction. So he interacts with Krishna. I want to be part of it. If he interacts with TV, maybe not. Especially if he watches movie, I'd hate it, If they watch the movie they like, it's kind of a little bit of interaction after that discussion, maybe for a few minutes. But otherwise, interaction is between the person, not like this. Although it is true, our nature is to be absorbed in something else which we are not. So why we watch movies so much? Why we listen even Srimad Bhagavatam so much? We're getting absorbed in the stories of somebody else's life. Right? This is not my life. And this is the nature of the living being absorbed in somebody else's life. So if you get absorbed in Krishna's life, we receive interaction, we receive energy, anything. If you get absorbed in someone's life who is materialistic, how long it can last? Not long. So let's be absorbed in Krishna's life. So both husband and wife will be happy, interacting with each other, inwardly absorbed in devotion. That's an ideal family life. Yes, Prabhuji?
There is a shloka in Bhagavatam Sindhu
Right.
saying that Shruti Smriti Purana Pancharatra Vidhi Guna Akantake Harya Bhakti Utpateva Kalpati. So, Srila Prabhupada explained that so-called devotional service without faith is Shruti Smriti Purana and Pancharatiki also is only a disturbance in the society.
Right.
And therefore, it is recommended that one should follow the footsteps of those who have full faith in the
Mm.
Vedic.
Scriptures, yes, exactly.
So, without following the teachings of the Acharya, we saw in the past it was bringing many harms to the movement of Krishna. It was harming also many devotees who lost faith in Ishvara. And we could see many properties were lost also, many manpower also. And so I think it's very important to understand not to be only subjective, but to be also objective regarding the teachings given by Srila Prabhupada Swami and Srila Prabhupada by following their instructions to avoid those disturbances in the society.
But connecting to this particular verse, I can synergize with your statement. The scriptures are saying that how to interact male and female principle. Because those acharyas, in particular Rupa Goswami, they are completely absorbed in interactions of Radha Krishna. Krishna is most intelligent, and Radharani is most female. There is no better example. So acharyas who are absorbed in those things, they can put those principles, how they apply in our condition, our life. So therefore, it's ideal. Yes, Mataji. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sure. Go.
Can I add something to what you've already
Sure.
summarized? You said that duty of a wife is to follow her husband, or
Mm-hmm.
what scriptures say. I don't have exact shlokas to add up to what I have to say, but scriptures say that a husband who is dharma nishta, like who is following his dharma,
Mm-hmm.
it is the duty of the wife to follow 100% a husband who is
Following dharma.
completely. But
And if he is not following,
if you have a husband who is not following his dharma, it becomes the dharma of the wife to show her husband the right dharma and direct him
right? Yes.
continuously and not follow him on the wrong direction.
Exactly. So the wife's principle is, if he is not doing the best, and especially we well known, there's a musa, the inspiration. So wife can be inspiration for the husband to change for the better. It is true. By her humbleness, by her service, she will not say, "Okay, I will be." You failed to be guru. Now I'm going to be guru because I know better scriptures. No, by showing the proper, and this time he will also be following because of her dharma, because of wife's absorption in the holy scriptures, in a proper attitude, proper activities. She becomes a spiritual leader. But a spiritual leader will be able to lead only by example. So she'll be humble, such a way her husband will become humble as well. It's true. Akhil Bhuj.
You quoted this, you mentioned this quote that is there in the
Yes.
Prabhu, quite well-known Prabhupada disciple, he told me personally,
Hmm.
he was here on the farm, that Prabhupada told him like this.
Hmm.
And there are two other devotees,
Hmm.
this one you mentioned, who stated the same, that Prabhupada wrote this handwritten.
I didn't say, Prabhupada didn't say it. Yeah, yeah. Probably you can find hundreds of devotees personally seeing that description or knowing the story, the whole thing. That doesn't make the context more important. As I mentioned, Sri Ram Swami mentioned the Lady Guru principle. At the beginning, Prabhupada said personally, I want every disciple of mine to become a spiritual master, the Guru. Later on in his books, he didn't quite maintain that whole line. And his personal conduct and example, when he introduced the Gurus and GBCs, there was no Maharaji's. So there's many things which we have to take in context. So that thing particular, as far as I know, that was exactly based on similar thing. The Maharaji who was serving, and I'm not sure which one, but one of the cooks who were cooking in the kitchen, she was so absorbed in the service, she became almost sick. And to maintain the health of that particular Prabhupada's disciple, Maharaji and servant, that quote and that instruction came about. I don't think so. In our temple, any of us serving so hard that becoming sick of being absorbed. Any of us became sick because we're too much serving? No. There's no question it has meaning. But every meaning and instruction has to be applied according to situation. So if there will be 2 free devotees in this temple who are serving so hard, they're losing their health. So for them, that would be rising the importance of that thing. But when their health becomes back again, then there's other instructions become more important, like chanting, serving, stuff like that, and being absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. You had some? Oh, Prabhu, sorry.
Just the 2 short comments that Prabhupada always ended each one of his letters with, may this lead to good health.
Right.
This is very common.
Yeah, sure.
Every letter he ended like that. So there is an emphasis on health for sure as well.
Yeah, sure.
But I agree that like we can, maybe that's an easy balance. We're not this body, so therefore we should not get overly absorbed and concerned about its maintenance, well-being, and it can be a big distraction, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And certainly, if you read the purpose, the main emphasis and Prabhupada's purpose is always, you should actually overcome the bodily needs and attachment, etc. But I think for practicality, if Prabhupada's mentioned in one of his letters, we should maintain good health, or this meets you in good health. And if this quote, Prabhupada had this quote in the kitchen, handwritten, so it has some value, I guess, that we should, maintain this balance between not, because in some purpose, Prabhupada also says we're not yogis who reject their body. So this principle is also mentioned often by Prabhupada. We don't reject the body; we want to use the body in Krishna service. And like you mentioned, it's a little bit of a paradox maybe, because if you don't take care of the body properly, at one point you won't be able to do service. If you
at one point,
if you neglect it too much,
Therefore, the whole sadhana bhakti, it is including activities which are maintaining the health. That means healthy physical service, healthy prasadam. Sorry? So things which we are doing according to Ayurveda has to be done regularly. You don't come to the point when you become sick. The main Ayurveda principle is you maintain a lifestyle which prevents you from becoming sick. So, too much physical activity, it means the person who applied the principle of service, he went into the disbalance. So there is no question of disbalance in the spiritual life. In the spiritual life, if you remember, the most closest friends or servants of Krishna gopis, they, outward appearance, beauty, dress, makeup, it is the service. So there always will be two things, and some of instructions will be more for the people in a man's body, which are naturally comfortable more with austerities, and for other ones which are naturally inclined to have a beauty and attraction by which both Krishna and even the man are going to be attracted. So for them, service is to be beautiful. So if the man would start doing the same beauty activities of the makeup and stuff like that, what do we call that guy? Gay, at least, or something like, he's off the track, he's off the balance, But if he's he's as a theater, he's an actor, he'll be doing a bunch, like a kilo of makeup, and nobody appreciates that. So every situation has to be in a context, what's his service, what's his thing, and a proper context. Yeah, sure. Krishna. Last thing, Bashar. Yeah, well, we have to start maintaining our bodies. Okay, Bashar.
Okay, sorry, yeah, we are over time, and I have a body nature of becoming frustrated when I'm hungry, so I'll make it very short.
You have to run.
One point is being overlooked, that in order for a disease to be developed physically in the body, like to have, back pain, sickness in the throat, and so on, that it's, first of all, it's not manifested initially as a physical disease. There's another two parallel aspects, which are the emotional and the spiritual, or which we call the karmic reason.
Exactly.
So when we fail to see that we have some mental or emotional disease or psychological something that is not.
It's come from subtle to more gross, right?
Yeah. Then it becomes manifested in the body. So because we can't see it psychologically, then the body tells us, okay, here there's a back pain, and that represents such.
Well, we have to remind ourselves that appearing of material body as such, it's already a sign of disease. So our devotional disease of not serving Krishna has resulted into having material body. So if that material body is getting more healthy or less healthy, it's still disease, So material body is a disease already. So even if you look extremely healthy, you have to remind yourself, you are sick. So in that perspective, let's get the spiritual benefit from taking prasadam and getting less sick. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.